The wind howled through the skeletal remains of Blackwood Mall, its shattered glass doors rattling like a death knell. Dr. Nathan Cole, a disgraced trauma surgeon, crouched behind a rusted escalator, his breath shallow as the roar of a massive grizzly bear echoed through the abandoned concourse. Outside, the Montana wilderness pressed against the mall's crumbling walls, and inside, Nathan's only allies, a ragtag group of strangers, were trapped with him, hunted by a beast that seemed driven by more than hunger. In his pocket, a faded photograph of his daughter burned like a promise he couldn't keep. It was 1992, and Blackwood Mall, once a bustling hub in rural Montana, had been left to rot after a mining collapse gutted the local economy. Nathan, a widower in his late 40s, had come to Blackwood seeking redemption. Years ago, a botched surgery had cost him his career and estranged him from his teenage daughter, Ellie, who now lived with her aunt in Missoula. Desperate to reconnect, Nathan took a job at a nearby clinic, but fate had other plans. On a stormy night, he'd stopped at the mall, now a shelter for drifters and squatters, to aid an injured hiker, only to find himself trapped when a monstrous grizzly, scarred and unnaturally aggressive, breached the building. The bear wasn't just a rogue animal. Locals whispered of the Hollow, a legend tied to the mines, where illegal experiments by a defunct corporation had poisoned the land, driving wildlife mad. The grizzly, a product of this toxic legacy, was a 200-pound killing machine, its senses sharpened by chemical exposure. Nathan, armed only with a medical kit and a hunting knife, became the group's reluctant leader. His companions included Tara Hayes, a tough-as-nails park ranger with a grudge against the corporation, Jimmy Cruz, a teenage runaway with a knack for lockpicking, and Reverend Lila Monroe, a preacher hiding from her own dark past. Each carried their own scars, but survival demanded trust. The mall was a maze of collapsed storefronts and flooded corridors, its decay mirroring the group's fragile hope. The bear's attacks were relentless, its claws tearing through metal shutters like paper. Nathan's medical skills kept the group alive, stitching wounds, improvising splints, but his guilt over Ellie weighed heavier than the danger. Tara, who'd lost her brother to a corporate cover-up, recognized the bear's behavior as unnatural and traced it to a hidden lab beneath the mall, where chemical drums still leaked into the groundwater. She insisted they destroy the lab to stop the bear's rampage, but Jimmy, desperate for escape, wanted to flee, while Lila urged them to face the beast as a test of faith. As the night wore on, the group's dynamic shifted. Nathan and Tara clashed over strategy, her recklessness against his caution, but their shared resolve to protect Jimmy forged a bond. Lila's cryptic sermons hinted at her own history with the corporation, raising suspicions she knew more than she let on. The bear's attacks grew cunning, as if it were stalking them with intent. In a desperate bid to survive, Nathan rigged a trap using propane canisters from an old food court, but the explosion only wounded the beast, enraging it further. Jimmy, using his lock-picking skills, found a service tunnel leading to the lab, but it was a death trap, flooded and unstable. The turning point came when Nathan found a radio in a security office, crackling with a faint signal from a ranger station. He sent a distress call, but the bear's next attack cut it short, forcing a retreat to the lab. There they uncovered files revealing the corporation S experiments, a chemical meant to enhance animal strength for industrial use, abandoned after catastrophic side effects. Lila confessed she'd worked as a corporate chaplain, turning a blind eye to the experiments until guilt drove her away. Her knowledge of the lab's layout guided them to a cache of tranquilizers, but the bear was already inside. The final confrontation was chaos. The lab, a cavern of rusted vats and flickering fluorescent lights, became a battlefield. Nathan, wielding a tranquilizer rifle, faced the bear alone to buy time for the others. Tara, refusing to abandon him, used a flare gun to distract the beast, while Jimmy and Lila sealed the lab's chemical drums to prevent further leaks. The bear, maddened by pain, charged Nathan, its claws missing him by inches. In a heart-pounding moment, Nathan drove the tranquilizer dart into its flank, but it wasn't enough. Tara, risking everything, lured the bear into a collapsing tunnel, where Nathan triggered a final trap, a rigged steel beam that pinned the beast as the lab caved in. As dawn broke, Ranger helicopters descended on Blackwood Mall. The bear, sedated but alive, was airlifted to a wildlife sanctuary for study. Nathan, Tara, Jimmy, and Lila emerged battered but unbroken. The lab's files, salvaged by Jimmy, were handed to federal agents, exposing the corporation's crimes and sparking a national investigation. Nathan, his courage rekindled, drove to Missoula to reunite with Ellie, the photograph in his pocket now a symbol of hope. Tara returned to her ranger post, vowing to protect the wilderness from corporate greed. Jimmy, inspired by Nathan, enrolled in a trade school, while Lila rebuilt her congregation, preaching redemption through action. Standing outside the mall's ruins, Nathan watched the sunrise paint the Montana sky gold. The Hollow's curse was broken, its secrets laid bare. He wasn't a hero, just a man who'd faced his demons and lived. As he drove away, Ellie's smile waiting on the horizon, he knew some battles were worth fighting.